Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. So we're here with John Fisher. So we'll jump right in with your marketing system, right? Like you market predominantly to lawyers, right?
Right. So the idea that I had, Tom, a long time ago in Juliet was, we think in catastrophic injury law that our clients are consumers. And in my view, they're not. The reason for that is if you have one client who's catastrophically injured, what's the likelihood that they're going to have another case or a family member will have another case? Practically zero. So why are we marketing to them? But if you had a law firm in Long Island that's, let's say it's 50 lawyers and they're a big prominent firm and they are going to send you case after case after case, just as long as you do a good job, not only on the case, but updating them regularly, then you've got a gold mine of referrals. And so I thought, why on earth am I spending even a penny marketing to consumers when our best cases, the highest value cases, always come from lawyers? And Tom, at a marketing conference, I'll ask attorneys, where do you get your best cases from? About 90% of them will say referrals. And I'll say, okay, great. Where are you getting your best referrals from? Half will say former clients, half will say lawyers. And then I'll say, what is your system? Do you have a documented system for acquiring and nurturing referrals from other lawyers? Not a single hand goes up when I ask that. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're getting 45% of that room is getting their best cases from lawyer referrals, and the rest of them are still getting a good chunk of it, then why on earth don't you have a system for doing that? So where that took us is marketing exclusively to lawyers for referrals. And we do that a number of ways. We do that through books. We do that through speaking engagements. I have two books, The Power of a System and The Law Firm of Your Dreams. If I will include my personal email, if anyone emails me, I will send you signed copies of both books as my compliments for listening to the podcast. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it. But speaking engagements, I just came from Wyoming about a month ago where I spoke to their people, just hooking up with people from Colorado, Nebraska, all over the place, and just making connections. And you might say, well, what on earth is an attorney in Wyoming going to refer a case to a lawyer in New York State? Well, you'd be surprised. They do all the time. In fact, usually it's not directly from them. They'll be like, John, I never in a million years thought I'd have a case in New York, but I've got my lawyer buddy. He does have one. Would you mind talking to him? Or you'll go on the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group and they'll be like, who's the best Mad Mal lawyer? Tom, Facebook is, or social media, it's just a long-term play. It's about developing relationships, getting your name out there. And then when you have a string of people recommending Tom Tona for a case in New York State, it's like, okay, the floodgates open because you're nurturing and developing those relationships. So books, speaking engagements, we do a monthly print newsletter that I've been doing every month in writing since December of 2010. It is easily the best marketing asset that we have. Lawyers don't do it. They think, oh, that doesn't work. You have to do any form of marketing takes a period of time for you to gain traction. It won't work in 4 months or 6 months. You're wasting your time and money. But if you do it for a year or 2 years, you'll be like, wow, people are calling me about this. So what we learned from our good friend Craig Goldenfarb, and Tom, I do this. I have a marketing person in Iowa whose sole job is to schedule lunch dates for me with other attorneys, prospective referring attorneys, current referring attorneys. I meet with them. And when I break bread, like what I would say, Tom, if somebody said, I've got no money for a website, I've got no money, books, forget about it. I don't have any of that money. And then I would say, don't worry about it. Do the weekly lunch date with somebody, hire a virtual assistant, get them to book lunch dates. You break bread with a prominent, influential lawyer. And all you have to do at these lunch dates is say, Tell me what made you really successful. I'd love to know. And lawyers love talking about themselves. They'll share everything with you. And then what happens at the end of that lunch date, they will say to you, Tom, by the way, I've got 5 cases. I don't really know what to do with them. Would you mind if I referred them to you and you take a look at them? And then what that does is it builds up this referral relationship where over time, they're sending their best cases to you. Now, one little tidbit story I want to share. A couple of years ago, one of the most prominent medical malpractice defense lawyers in New York came into my firm with like a box of a file. And it was a judge's law clerk who had died at a hospital in upstate New York. And it was a really good case. And I said, I'm so flattered that you picked our firm for this case. But can I ask you, why didn't you pick the bigger firms or the firms that I respect, Duffy and Duffy in Long Island, firms like that? Sure. Why didn't you pick these guys? And they're like, well, we thought about it, but we just like you better. And here's the takeaway from that. They didn't pick me. This is the most sophisticated consumer on the market. They didn't pick me because of my skills or ability. They picked me because they like me better than these other attorneys. So forming those relationships is essential to developing a referral-based business.
The most impactful thing that you've done, which is a phenomenal marketing tool that brings you nationwide renowned, one of the most unbelievable things you've created as both a top-of-mind awareness tool, but providing unbelievable value. Your mastermind. Mm-hmm. What's the name of the mastermind?
Well, it's called the Mastermind Experience. But Tom, you and I actually we're in Atlanta with Craig Goldenfarb, and we were sitting around and there was a dinner. And one of the things that I shared with both of you was, I think it's so cool that Craig gives us permission to do what we love and to be who we are. So for example, if you told me today that I am going to live the life of Craig Goldenfarb, that I'm going to look at graphs and charts, but I'll never be in a courtroom again. I'm never going to do another deposition. I won't have client communication. That's the end of it. I don't want that life. That's not for me.
Right. And see, that's the life I want to live, right? So we can each do that. Right. We can each do that. Yeah.
So the cool thing about Craig, and it's so different, because all of these marketing seminars that we go to, they say, scale up, get big, do this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if I don't want to scale up or get big? Right. What if I want to be small? And what is really cool is meeting people like you and Craig, who are so far, like from a business perspective, so far beyond your peers, that every single day I'm just picking golden nuggets from you and Craig and Seth Price and people like that who are just sharing everything that they know.
You've been described by several people as like the godfather of masterminds. I have fallen in love with the consistent leveling up and that you get with, like I'm going to all your masterminds that I can make, right? Yeah. Because the value that you provide is, I'm not even joking. I could probably put a 10x to 100x ROI every time I go to your mastermind, just based on the networking and the issue solving by listening to other people's issues, asking great questions like Bill Umansky, who led the last group I was in, did. He was running our group in your mastermind. The guy was so on with the opening remarks he gave and his poignant questions that I left and I was like, I solved like 3 more major initiatives because of these people. Like, it's amazing the circle you've created, the tribe you've created that you call it.
Yeah. But you know what the best thing, Tom, has been from the mastermind? It isn't what I've learned. I certainly have lost a lot of money on, so it's not that either. It's not that we've made money from this. What it is really watching young attorneys thrive. And Ryan McKean came to our mastermind for the first time in Chicago in 2017. And actually, he heard a presentation by Michael Smith, and he said, that set the course for my law firm right there. And about a year ago or less than that, Ryan and his partner, Andrew, got a $100 million verdict. And he said, that never would have been possible without the mastermind. I needed the business fundamentals in place in order to take a $100 million case, because otherwise I would have just had to refer it to some other attorney. So getting the business fundamentals in place is so essential. And Tom, what I think is lawyers don't really immerse themselves in the business of law, but they have to. We don't have a choice in this. We have to become masters in business, because I go to all this lawyer stuff and I hear these people and they'll talk like about their deposition or their trial or whatever. I'm like, you don't get to do any of that stuff if you don't master the business. I'll go to trial lawyers college stuff, and it's young lawyers talking about courtroom glory and all this other nonsense. And I'm like, forget about that. Learn the basics of business and master it. And if you do, I mean, we don't have a problem here. The problem that we have is not getting cases; it's managing all the cases. Right. There's too much work coming out.
Well, that's because your marketing system is insanely in depth, insanely effective. My biggest pet peeve is people trying to sell without any understanding of if you're the right demographic, the right person to buy, and your pain points. Right? You want to sell? Understand somebody's pain points. This came out when we were talking to Jen Talley in one of those podcasts we did with her, where ask questions and listen and stop trying to sell. Stop trying to line your pockets. Stop trying to get me into a contract. Just ask me my pain points. And that pain point might be something you can't fix, which means I'm not your demographic, because no matter how awesome you think you are at DMing me, I'm not even going to reply. Right. And no one's going to reply at the highest levels. They don't want to hear any of this nonsense, because if you get somebody who understands leverage and you get somebody who understands the value you provide at the price points you provide it, it sells itself if you can solve their issue. It really is about embedding care and empathy in for the clients, because that's what they really want. That's what they really want. And then the rest comes. You get the big cases. The big cases come in. You work them the right way. You get the right result, right? Exactly. So to me, solving pain points builds trust. It strengthens the relationships, and it positions you and your business as a partner, not a transaction, right? I know people that treat me very transactionally, and it's a very surface relationship. Do you understand the difference, Jules? Like what the difference
between
with
transactional?
Yeah, so the transactional approach is you going into a conversation and you want something. You're hoping to get something out of it. And that's transparent. People know that. It smells from a mile away. Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. This is the first time I have a marketing person on our podcast that I am employing, using, thrilled with, and happy to bring to the audience members, because I have found legal marketing to be challenging at certain points in my career, as do many people in the legal space. So welcome to Ron Latz from Legal Phoenix.
And I hate to break it to everybody here, but all marketing works. It's just whether or not it is going to work for you.
Right.
And what you really need to do is get a lot better context. When you're having those discussions in masterminds, at the happy hour, at the ball field, whatever it is, it's trying to understand, well, what were the other things that were complementary to those efforts that might have been driving or helping those results? Because just because someone launched a Facebook campaign or ran ads on Google Ads, in isolation, it's likely not the thing that certainly achieved all those case signups, right? They might have billboard, radio, TV. They could have been investing in SEO for a decade or even 5 years. Right? A strong referral network. There's so many other things that are coming into play. Strong intake, right? If you're not converting the majority of wanted leads into cases and your intake isn't getting that, you're at the 1 yard line and they can't get it in there, right? Like that's going to make a big difference in how effective or the returns that you make on your marketing. Right? The other thing is like, what are your internal resources look like? Right? Do you have individuals in-house that are going to do some of the more guerrilla marketing, on the ground, community involvement stuff? We certainly, at least within our model, can help shape that strategy and identify what metrics we're going to track and the outcomes that we want to have. But there's others that will get a little bit more into the weeds than we will. And that's just a different model. They will be the ones that might build out landing pages or write the newsletter or write the social media posts, right? So like, you just have to understand where the gaps are, what seats you need filled, and then whether or not that fractional or consultancy is able to fill those gaps appropriately.
If you got firm owners that are predominantly listening to this, what's one thing that you would tell them, like, hey, right now you need to be aware of this in legal marketing?
Well, listen, clearly the pace at which AI is impacting not only the technology, but the way in which we market, as well as enabling firms to do a lot more with a lot less. I think that, you'd be remiss if you're not taking that into account and trying to deploy it in a way that can help you internally and operationally. Not saying necessarily take away all the legal work, but there are certain things that someone like Ed or a COO or a fractional COO is able to do and leverage in order to make you more efficient with your time. I think that's pretty much table stakes. There are certain things that you can leverage these tools for, just like us, right? I have a team that is across the country. We're leveraging a CRM tool. We've got call recording, a project management tool. Everyone is in their calendar, in their email. We've got Slack. So the fact that we can kind of tie all of that together into Claude Cowork, basically, and streamline like information, like give me the recap for this week. What can we summarize as far as like for the firm to know the things that we have accomplished, right? That's just from to operations, right? As far as marketing is concerned, right, you've got all these large language models and answer engines. You've got AI mode with Google and AI overviews. I think what is really happening here is the resurgence of firms that have to and have been neglecting a focus on brand, right? So, you're out there producing content on LinkedIn. You've got this podcast. You have a newsletter, right? You're tapping into your referral network, right? The other lawyers that you are working with that can send you cases. Those are the cases that you're acquiring at a lower acquisition cost. It's
absolutely,
not the investments that you've got in channel, right? So what we want to do is put firms in a position in which they are capitalizing more on that brand search and not becoming reliant upon the personal injury near me or car accident lawyer, GIA, right? Because those head terms are very expensive, right? But the way, and again, I'm very skeptical of some of like the AI tracking tools and how frequently you are being mentioned just because the output is so personalized and custom to your previous chats and history and behavior, right? That I don't find them overly reliable. We can pick up some signals from them. But as far as, doing things that will enable you to be mentioned by them, it's marketing 101 stuff. It's
I was just going to say, it really in my mind at this point, because you can make yourself crazy, right? If you think going to ChatGPT and asking who's the best PI lawyer and it doesn't know that it's talking to you, you're kidding yourself, right? So I'm not going to take comfort from that. It really comes down to, are you making yourself visible to a wide enough audience that when people are looking you up, that you will randomly show up in AI. I don't know that there's companies out there now. Well, let me ask you, a lot of SEO companies are pivoting to, we're going to teach you AI, right? What's it called? GEO or everywhere, optimization. Is there a trick to AI optimization, like optimizing so you show up in AI? I mean, other than best practices that you would be doing anyway as part of normal SEO/marketing, right? You want to be on directories. Everybody knows the legal directories are a thing. But anybody's like saying, hey, I've got this thing I'm selling. We know the secret sauce. Is that real?
No, I think for the most part, it's a lot of snake oil. I'm not saying that there are certain things that we can do to put ourselves in a better position to show up, right? You mentioned the legal directories. The reason why the legal directories are often so prominent in their placement within answer engine output is because the answer engines are relying upon other signals to basically cite the source in which they are telling you, I noticed that this individual was listed on Super Lawyers or Best Lawyer or has a 10.0 on Avvo, right? They are picking up other information that they have consumed within their data set in order to provide you with a response, right? Around who the best this or that lawyer is, right? The way that you are going to increase the visibility in those answer engines there is by, again, if you are being cited by multiple sources or being published by reputable publications and journalists are interviewing you and you've got news segments and you are doing all of the things in order for people to be searching, Tona Law or Thomas Tona Lawyer, right? You will increase the likelihood that if someone is searching for the service that you provide when they are injured due to the negligence of others, that you might show up, right? Like that's hard to say we're going to guarantee that you're going to get this placement. That's a gray area. I don't think that is necessarily possible at this point.
How do you message to law firm owners who are stroking checks that are 5-figure checks, multi-5-figure checks a month on marketing, but have that feeling of really like loss of control or not. I liken it to going to buy a car with a blindfold on with a checkbook in your hand, right? Like for me, I just didn't understand it enough. And I was like, I can't dedicate myself to becoming an expert in SEO or social to the point where I actually can manage it. What do you tell owners? At what point does it make sense from a budgetary perspective to bring on a Ron Latz, Legal Phoenix?
Well, I'll answer the first question, then I'll go to the budget question around
Sure.
like evaluating those agencies, right? I can't come in and make sweeping changes across the entire vendor pool without knowing what was the task at hand, what were they supposed to be doing, what was the target that they were given, what is the budget, what's been the timeline. Let me look at the data. Let me try to tie that back to the business outcomes and the cases that were acquired. Because if there is the possibility, which I do run into this pretty frequently, that the agency's doing a good job. And I just then have to have a conversation with the firm to say, listen, you're missing 20 to 30% of your phone calls. Your wanted to conversion of signed cases is well below nationwide benchmarks, right? We're significantly underinvested in this channel given the competitive landscape. I can then put myself in the role of being completely neutral. Yeah, and in that instance, I am defending the agency because maybe they didn't do a good job articulating the value that they were providing, but they weren't sticking up for themselves in the regard that like that firm probably should have been investing 2 to 3x based off of what their expectation was, right? And I've walked into situations where we get brought on, we're on the kickoff call, and they say, Ron, I want you guys to clean house. And I just ask for time. Just let me have some time. Let me talk to these individuals. I speak their language. They're going to share some of the gripes that they're having with the firm, right? And I can pretty much bridge the gap to say, listen, agency, I'm not going to do anything that you're doing, right? I'm not going to sell those products. So rest assured, I'm not trying to take scope out. But then I can go over to the firm and I could say, listen, right? Like all the things that I rattled off, whether it's approvals or not answering the phone or gaps in intake, so that we can all just kind of reset and then move forward from there, right? And there's really situations in which the firm was to blame. And again, where the agency was to blame, but I'm not here to point any fingers. I want to make sure that we're all, again, aiming at the same target, right?
You know, you're spitting a lot of wisdom. And so let's talk about a couple of things and unpack it. One, bend. I'll give you an example. And again, I learned this through my travels with you, really. But I was talking to a firm owner and I said, how much are you spending on SEO? They were like $750 a month. I'm like, you are lighting that on fire. Just do me a favor, like either hire Ron Latz or just stop paying the SEO company, because you are literally, there is nothing you can buy for $750 in the legal marketing space from an SEO company. Like, what could they be doing other than sending you an invoice every month, right? So you have to talk about, and this is for the firm owners who don't know yet, but you have to talk about the realities of the legal marketing space, how much it's changed even since AI changed the algorithm in Google in December 2024. So talk about the realities of case acquisition costs and how much they've changed even in the last 12 months.
Sure. Well, to your point, at $750 a month, it's probably a very cookie cutter approach. Maybe they're handling hosting and maintenance, which is going to be, maybe $100 to $300 a month. And then if you've got an account manager, right, that individual's got to get paid and they could be putting together a report and maybe some content. I think the point that you were trying to make is, depending upon the market and the practice area, which I don't know, so I can't speak directly to it, it is very likely that those dollars could be repurposed or allocated somewhere else that can drive a better outcome, maybe within referrals, referral networking, community involvement, things like that. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I don't know that particular situation.
Right. Well, the point being that people have to be realistic in their spend.
Oh.
And I was talking to somebody yesterday that we both know, and he was like, man, if I could go back. And I said, listen, I used to pay sub 1,000.
Oh, acquisition costs.
Yeah. So give people kind of a reality check right now about cost of acquisition to play digital marketing game. And digital marketing covers a lot of things, but there has to be a certain reality to the benchmarking of budgeting, right? And so what have you seen to let's talk about Google specifically, because that you can talk about. I mean, I watched them climb over the years. It was sub 1,000, then it was 1,000, then it was 1,500, then you were paying $2,000. Talk about acquisition costs on Google right now, average cost of acquisition.
Sure. I mean, again, with Google, we're specifically going to be talking about organic, local, and your paid search options, which will be Google Ads or LSAs. And if you you are in a major market, right? If you're in Manhattan, LA, Chicago, Miami, I mean, acquisition costs continue to rise.
Yeah.
And in LA, if you're acquiring a case somewhere between the $4,000 to $5,000 mark, you're probably in that range. But again, it depends on so many other factors what you are paying, because as you continue to invest, the incremental cost to acquire a case is going to rise. It's going to keep going up. So depending upon channel mix, depending upon the competitive landscape, right? Even local, Tom, you've got firms out there in some of these major markets that have 1, 2, 3,000 plus reviews. They're not only dominating the map pack, but they are the ones that are likely also showing up consistently in spots 1 or 2 on LSAs. And if they're invested in ads, they've got likely, right, like almost 6-figure monthly budgets, because they want to saturate and occupy as much real estate as possible on the first page of Google. The other thing, when you think about, for example, acquisition costs within LSA, right, like the volume game is there. If there is a firm that is consistently taking most of those prospects, Google's in the business of maximizing revenue per impression. They're going to want to give the firm that is always answering the call within minutes or seconds, that is marking those as booked, because it puts money in their pocket, right? They're listening on those calls to make sure that you are giving an incredible client experience. You're assuring that person that they called the right place, that this is exactly what you do. You're exercising empathy, and then you're booking those leads. Because if not, right, if you are the firm that is declining 9 out of 10 or 9.5 out of 10 of those LSAs, Google's not going to want to continue to give you those at-bats, because it's not putting money in their pockets. Now, costs are going to range, right? It really depends. It depends upon how many you are qualifying, how quickly you are answering and responding to the phone. Are you going into the back end of the LSA platform and creating that feedback loop and letting them know, right, like this is qualified, and rating those leads? So there's so many factors that are coming into play, and that's just LSAs, right? Paid search, yes, average cost pers are going to continue to rise, and there's a balance there as far as determining, like, what is our budget allocation for brand versus non-brand? Do we compare that to the cost of LSAs? Because LSAs now offer you the opportunity to look at your direct search, right? So you can back out now how many times people, out of all the LSAs that come in, how many people searched for the brand versus the category search, which is your non-brand, right? We have clients that have significant dollars, right? Heavy portions of budget going towards some of their branded efforts. And we see within LSAs that, again, I'm a smaller shop, right? I'm not like some of these agencies that have 100 or 200 clients, right? We're looking at a much smaller subset of data. But the firms that are investing heavily in brand, we see the direct correlation within LSAs that their direct search LSAs are significantly higher than the firms that are not investing in brand, right?
Okay.
And if we can compare the costs, if they are in a paid search channel like Google Ads, right? How much are they paying for that branded click versus how much are they paying for the direct search on LSA?
Look, what I like about what we're talking about, because we're getting granular, is for anybody that's listening to this, let's say for a second you run a PI shop, because that's what I know. Is there a formula you apply for budgeting? If somebody calls you up, says, Ron, I just settled a big case. I want to put some money into marketing. I've kind of been all over the map. I want to be a $5 million a year firm, $10 million a year firm. What percentage should I be spending, and where should I spend it? Now, I know that varies, right, by firm and owner and what their comfort level is with certain mediums, but what percentage of gross revenue should people be spending? And if you have aspirations for being, let's say, a $10 million firm, what does that spend need to be to produce the amount of cases you need?
I've just had another post on this within the past week about allocating.
All right, good.
So one of the biggest things that is going to come into play here is like your timeline, right? Do you need cases tomorrow, or can you survive? And can we look at some long-term investments? Because I want to balance both short and long-term plays. First and foremost, right? If you need to keep the lights on and you are looking for cases tomorrow, you're looking for more performance marketing channels, right? And still, even if you're looking at Google ads, right, I think that you should be willing and ready to invest and sustain that investment for at least 6 to 9 months to determine how well it is working and whether or not you should double down or pull out of that market and reallocate those dollars. I think generally speaking, if you are comfortable with maintaining the status quo, and there are plenty of firms out there, right, like investing anywhere between 5 to 8% of your annual gross towards marketing to ensure that your client experience is world-class, that you are nurturing and maintaining referral connections and networks, right? Doing the networking events, the happy hours, going to lunch, getting the coffee, grabbing the drink, doing the dinners, right? To maintain those relationships, maybe a little bit of swag just to make sure that you've got some branded stuff and you're trying to just, again, you're maintaining, you're not aggressively growth minded. You're within that 5 to 8% range. If you want some moderate growth, then you're, I don't know, somewhere between 10 to 15 compound annual growth. Like you're looking at somewhere between the 10 to 18 range or 10 to 15% range. And if you're very aggressively growth mining, you're in between 20 to 30%, right? But those are all very different business models. The infrastructure that you need, especially on not only intake, but the legal services and client services delivery model, they are completely different across all 3 to 4 of those buckets that I just rattled off.
Right.
You see all these advertisements out there, right? The guarantee of 150 cases in a given month or, right, like sub $1,000 acquisition costs. And it's just like, for me to come to you, Tom, and say, hey, I'm going to get you 150 cases starting on 4/1, like the work that would have to go into.
Not only that, I mean, you literally need X number of attorneys coming on every month to service that. Every other month, let's say at 150 cases, you need a new attorney. Let's say you're signing all 150. The infrastructure demands are astronomical. The math will never math on these lead gen companies that are promising that stuff. It's just ridiculous. You have to scale into it. That's why they call it scaling, because otherwise you're just going to implode. As somebody who I have broken intake more times than I care to even admit with hitting on a marketing idea that just hit. And all of a sudden, I've got my entire team doing intakes. Then I hire a dedicated intake person. Infrastructure needs and operational needs are so real, because otherwise what you're faced with is upset clients, upset leads, upset intakes. So again, there's a lot of moving pieces to the marketing puzzle, right? To the growth puzzle. So I want to ask you your opinion. I have an opinion on it, but you've talked to a lot of firm owners. Why do most firm owners struggle to evaluate marketing performance, in your opinion?
I think because for the most part, success isn't really being defined at the onset of the engagement. There's a firm that will go to an agency and the agency will basically say, our product or our solution or the channel that we focus on can help you meet your goals, right? Because that's how they get paid. And the law firm hears that and they think, maybe here's my silver bullet, or this is what I've been waiting for, or I've been promised the world. And they jump into it because they've been kind of sold on someone else's success and someone else's metrics and someone else's firm that they are not building, that they kind of, it's not a shiny object syndrome, but they want to believe that this is going to work the way that it has been promised to them. It's just, unfortunately, that's not always the case. So if you do step back, one of the ways that you can pressure test that is just see if they're not willing to sell you the product that they sell. Right? Like the model that we have, like we are not for everyone, and that's by design. And I will let people know listen, there are definitely a lot of benefits of working with us. There's also some drawbacks, right? And I think every agency, right, there's going to be pros and cons to their model. The ones that do tend to push back and say, hey, listen, if we were able to deliver this as we have promised and the expectation that we have set, would your team be able to handle that?
Right.
Right? Like there are instances that we have even put ourselves in, right? Like I don't bat 1,000. I enter into client engagements that haven't worked out before. One of them that comes to mind, and we still parted on amicable terms here, they didn't have any infrastructure put into place. No CRM, no call tracking, no matter management system. They were still in the middle of an implementation, right? So I was like, I still think that we can help in a different way, right? Like the referral marketing, right? The newsletters, the community involvement. There are things that we can do to get our name out there, right? And it just, for whatever reason, the implementation continued to drag on. And the firm wanted us. And this was in a very competitive market. They wanted to jump into ads, which is music to my ears, Tom. When firms do want to spend and they're willing to look at marketing as experiments and test things out, there's nothing more that a marketer loves than to hear that they're willing and open to do that, right? But I can't go and spend $50,000 to $100,000 a month on ads with no way to track whether or not we have converted that.
And no infrastructure.
So, we just decided it was best to part ways until those tools and systems were put into place. And if and when that time comes, they want to re-engage, we can open the lines of communication again, right? But, the agencies that I know, because I'm referring them all business, right?
Right.
And I see them say, on the consulting side and on the fractional side, they are asking for that information. They are asking the questions about the infrastructure and the CRM and the call tracking.
See, that's important. That's really important because what you just said, there's a lot of granular advice, I think, that comes from this that I'm hoping is simple enough for people to unpack. Let's say that they're at $1 million or $2 million in revenue. If your firm doesn't have an operations person, and by operations person, I mean somebody trained in operations, either director level, minimum director, or senior operations manager level, then you probably can't even get to a Ron fractional CMO point because you won't have somebody that can build out the systems, build out the automations and the technology end to end that you need. So I love that from an ethics point, you actually told that client, look, just not now, right? Maybe in the future, but not now, because without this other stuff in place, your hands are tied on so many different levels, right? Like I already had the realization that I needed to level up operations, right? Because I felt the operational fires. I saw every problem as an operational problem that I couldn't fix. And I hate operations. So I want it out as soon as possible. And when I say I hate it when I do it. I love it when 2 experts or 3 experts in my firm are doing it. I'm all about it. I'm like, systematize this, automate that. Good, as long as I don't have to oversee it or create the system. So really what you're talking about is a healthy law firm marketing ecosystem, right? Talk about, to you, what's the ideal scenario to step into that's a healthy law firm marketing ecosystem and the different components and how they, kind of tie together.
I distill it down to 3 components. It's the people, it's your process, and then it's the technology. And what most firms do is they kind of work it backwards and they allow the technology to dictate the process, and then they try to force that process onto the people. It's a simple technology like implementation framework, right? When my time in like enterprise sales, where it was a service and a technology, and we were helping companies like manage a lot of their contractors. And this was just a principle that we would always do when we would implement the tool and then integrate it with others. You've got these great quality people that you have hired, right? And without a standardized process, you're going to try to put the circle into the square into the circle, whatever the analogy is, but you're not doing it in the way that you normally would operate, right? Whether it's intake, whether it's client services, whether it's your pods, whatever it may be, the people are the one doing this day in and day out. Right? Especially with technology builds and integrations. Like if you aren't talking to your people about the way that they use the tool, the way that they need to use the tool, and you're just making a decision in a vacuum as the owner saying, oh, I like this because it's shiny and I want to use it.
Right.
If you're not canvassing all stakeholders to ensure that this is what they need, how do they use it? Why are they doing this? Is there a better way your adoption is going to suffer greatly.
Right.
So understanding the way that the people are working and hopefully having a standardized operating procedure and a process in which, or a framework in which they work in, and then seeing how the tool or the technology can help improve it or make you more productive or more efficient to get the information out of the other end so that everybody is working as a well-oiled machine, right? Like that's the entire marketing ecosystem. And you can apply that to not only just marketing, your intake, your legal services, just your operations, because there's tools for everything these days.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of the law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.